great time at my internship in Las Vegas this summer, and one of the things I learned a lot about was my personality type. So for me, to work really well on a project, I look at the big picture first, and then I break it down into smaller pieces and tasks to complete a project. And I found out that a lot of times in the workplace, you can't, or you don't have enough time, or you can't be allowed enough time to look at the big picture and then break it down. Sometimes you need to start immediately working on things to build up to the big picture. So for me and my group, I was a big picture person, and I was very fortunate to work with a colleague who is really task oriented and sometimes has a hard time looking at the big picture. So my weakness was I wasn't comfortable at first. Oh, well, being a leader means you get to call all the shots and everybody listens to you. So if you're a leader in a company, you make the most money, you can tell people what to do, and you can really be in charge. And when someone's at the top of an organization, that means he or she is the best. I would consider myself a leader. My whole life I've worked to really influence people and improve places where I've been. So from school to the workplace, I'm always looking for ways to be a leader. I would say that my leadership style is influential and transformational. So I can give you an example. In undergrad at Michigan State, I saw a need for a volunteer organization. And so there were a lot of organizations in the greater Lansing community that weren't getting the number of volunteers that they needed. So I started a volunteer organization to fill that need, and I would just recruit people to attend these events a la carte. So you didn't have to attend all of the events, but I was able to recruit enough people to make sure that all the events were staffed and that these volunteer organizations in the community could run. So I really think being a leader is not being someone who's always top down and shooting demands at people. It's really someone who takes a look at the big picture, gets to know all of the people in an organization, and learns people to know how to recruit some, to know other strengths and weaknesses, to really benefit all. Oh, yes. I can think of a story immediately. It was in my past workplace when I was a teacher. Our team of Spanish teachers could never come to a consensus. So we ended up just arguing with each other, and we would rarely come to a solution. So finally, I took the lead and I said, forget about your opinions. And if I had one other person agree with me, then we went on with the idea, and that's how we got things done. So I'll take you back to when I was a teacher in Baltimore City. I was a Spanish teacher, so we had a foreign language department. And one day we were having a department meeting, and we sat together by languages. So I was with the 4 other Spanish teachers, and our department head came over to us and said, you all need to give the same midterm exam this year for each Spanish levels. So for example, I taught Spanish 1, and so did another teacher. However, the problem arose when we realized that for years people had given different exams. So there was a huge problem when those students would go to Spanish 2 because they had learned different things. So to change that problem, our department head said, let's start giving the same exam so that we have some consistency. Well, the big problem was this was 2 weeks before the midterm exam was to have been given. So we had already been teaching our own ways until that time. So this caused some major conflict. So around the table we had teachers. At first there was an impasse. I'm not doing this. I'm not giving the same midterm exam. Our students have learned different things. There was some name calling. He doesn't do it right, and so on. So we all sat there for a moment, and finally I calmly said to the team, we must come to a decision here. Okay, there really is no option. We need to get something done. So I suggested, why don't we go around the table and give some idea of how we could accomplish this common midterm exam. So after some deliberation, we finally decided to take pieces of everyone's pre-written exams and put them together to form one exam. So we made sure, since we had 2 weeks, that if there was any information that was covered on the exam that we had not taught our individual students yet, we would make sure to cover it in that time. So we met probably 3 times after that, and were able to deliver a common midterm to the department head who approved it, and we gave the same midterm exam to our students, and it was a success. So actually, not only did we give the same midterm, we ended up working together throughout the next semester to give the same final. So not only did we have the effect right there on the common midterm, it made collaboration easier. We were able to go to the other teachers for ideas, and it really created consistency that is now established moving forward at the school. Okay, so this just happened last weekend, but my sister, she has a newborn, just 2 months old, and she asked me to watch her baby. But I had just come back from a 12-hour flight from across the globe, and I was very exhausted, but she really needed a sitter. So I said, okay, but this was a risk because I was very tired and I didn't know how long I could stay awake to care for the baby. So I took the baby, and I gotta tell you, I fell asleep. I fell asleep for a long time, about 8 hours. I didn't think that would be a problem, but it's what happened. So it was a risk, but when I woke up, the baby was okay, and I think the baby slept most of the time as well. So really, it was a risk, but I handled it, and I got rest myself, and the baby was fine, and I never told my sister. My answer is pretty personal, but for me, one of the riskiest decisions, I had a great teaching job in Baltimore City. I was a high school Spanish teacher, making good money for a single woman. And I decided that I really wanted to be a leader someday, and I wanted to go to business school and learn how to do that. But the risk for me was I only had public sector experience, and after business school I wanted to work in the private sector. And so I consulted a lot of people in the field who recruit for private sector firms, and they told me, you can do it, but this is going to be very difficult, and there's a chance that it won't happen. So for me, that risk was giving up my life as a teacher, something I'm passionate about, a great salary, and really, just an established and safe job market, because I was valued very highly at my school, but I really wanted to learn more and get my master's degree. So it was a huge risk. So I came to the Smith School of Business, and I took it upon myself to make sure that I wasn't going to be the person who failed, and that I would find an internship and finally a full-time job in the private sector. So I did everything I could, and I just dove deep into school. So school, there's so many opportunities, but I got involved in clubs. I was a first-year board member for the Marketing and Human Capital Associations. I attended conferences to see what the big world was like, and I learned a lot. At school, we have information sessions for employers. I attended as many as I possibly could to learn from my peers, to learn from the employers, what are they looking for? And I think one of the biggest things, I would meet with my career coach to look at my transferable skills, because I have quite a lot of skills from teaching that I can transfer over into the private sector.